All right. Well, one part of the Trump trade was in cryptocurrencies. We saw Bitcoin and other cryptos absolutely rally, including Bitcoin hitting new highs. Mike Novogratz has been building his business around cryptocurrencies, and he joins me now as the CEO of Galaxy Digital. Mike, thanks as always for joining me. So what does Donald Trump presidency mean for crypto?
Listen, I think yesterday was probably the most important day for the cryptocurrency industry and for Galaxy as a company in years. And I say that because, we've suffered 4 years of regulatory purgatory, an administration that didn't appreciate our industry and was just starting to understand it some. So there was a thawing out that was happening. But Trump, listen, he went to Bitcoin Nashville, the big Super Bowl of Bitcoin conferences, and he laid down his vision, which was pro-crypto all the way, from not selling the Bitcoin that the government already owns to potentially a strategic reserve. Most importantly, I think we're going to get new heads of the SEC, the FDIC, the OCC, all these regulatory bodies that will allow custodians like State Street and Bank of New York, investment banks and other banks to hold crypto on their balance sheet. And as all these traditional players come into the market, it's going to bring in a tremendous amount of capital. And so I couldn't be more optimistic, actually. I was not a President Trump voter for lots of other reasons, but as a crypto guy, this is almost nirvana. Strategic reserve,
what does that look like? Do you mean central bank buying, or do you think that a government-led reserve?
If I was advising, I'd be saying, listen, we already have a bunch of Bitcoin that you had confiscated from bad actors. He's already pledged not to sell that. Maybe you add to that pile as a symbolic gesture to the world, to America, that we're going to be a leader in this new technology. And, digital assets are coming. I think this whole year, starting with Larry Fink and BlackRock participating and all the way through, you're seeing a slow and then faster and faster adoption of this space. And now I think, it's going to be the pedal down to the floor, and you're going to see lots of new participants.
You mentioned a bunch of new initiatives beyond ETFs, like a strategic reserve, like allowing the banks to hold crypto that would be positive for the sector. What about rolling back the things that have dented the sector? The SEC's posturing around crypto. It's no secret that Gary Gensler, I don't think, is a friend to those in crypto. Do you expect a change there? What would it mean?
Yeah, 100%. New regime, new people. Listen, there was going to be a change at the SEC no matter who won. Most people don't keep that job more than 4 years. But Trump is going to put someone who's crypto friendly in the SEC. And, I'm sure that gets announced sometime in the next 12 weeks. And the overall energy to our space is going to shift tremendously, right? One of the things that have held back innovation is people have been scared to participate because you might get a Wells notice, you might be doing something illegal. And it wasn't that there were terrible rules out there. There were no rules. And the rules were being determined by criminal action, right? By the SEC coming and saying, hey, you did something wrong. We're going to give you a Wells notice. We're going to prosecute you, as opposed to saying, hey, this is how to do it right. And so in the long run, Congress is going to have to pass legislation, both around stable coins and around market structure, to make the rules clearer. But in the short run, you're going to have a lot less fear that you're going to get prosecuted and persecuted, by the agencies.
If I'm a risk-averse person or even a regulator, I may be a little bit concerned about this vision that you're talking about, given that there has been fraud. There have been millions lost by people. What happened with FTX did happen. And if you're talking about this whole green light and going back to, the altcoin frenzy, that's a big risk to the everyday investor, especially if it's now going to go all the way up to the U.S. government holding a reserve of crypto.
Yeah, listen, the community, and certainly Galaxy, I'll speak for our own company, we have been really consistent at telling people in Washington and telling people on the airwaves that we think we need good regulation. We never thought we needed no regulation, right? There was a tremendous amount of bad actors in the 2016, 17, 18, all the way to 21 period. You should not be able to launch a coin and not have any disclosure about it and, dump that coin right into an unsuspecting public. And so all the pieces of legislation that it forwarded were pretty rational, with disclosure, with guardrails to protect the consumer. What was frustrating is we got none of them, and we had an SEC with the hammer who randomly would hammer you on the head. And so that's going to change. And I think this will put pressure on, which is now looks like it's going to be a Republican Senate and a Republican House, to pass legislation that really sets out rules that allows this industry to thrive.
You trade on the Canadian markets. In many ways, the Canadian markets have been more open, more transparent around regulation and parameters. Do you think that there's a chance you trade in the U.S.? What would need to happen to open up that market?
Yeah, listen, one of the things that has been unbelievably frustrating, 4 years ago, 3.5 years ago, we tried to have a dual listing, right, to re-domicile in the United States and to list on either the NASDAQ or the stock exchange. And Coinbase got public under Jay Clayton. We waited a little too long. The new regime came in, and we have literally been 7 sets of questions back and forth with the SEC, 3.5 years and $25 million of expense trying to get public in the U.S. And it's not that we don't love the Canadian market. The liquidity of the world is in the NASDAQ and is in the U.S. And so, to tap into that liquidity, you need that access, right? We're a close to $5 billion company. And, we don't trade nearly the volume we would if we were in the U.S. And therefore, our ability to tap capital markets isn't as good. And so I think this has been one of the big, frustrations, but also unfair. Like, there's no other industry where there's one participant that gets to tap the capital markets, in this case, Coinbase, and all the rest of us are waiting on the sidelines because there's a new regime. That's not the way regulation is supposed to work in the U.S. or in any country.
That's wild. You've spent $25 million in 3 years trying to list in the United States. Do they have a particular holdup against Galaxy?
No, there have been a list of companies, Bullish, eToro, plenty of other crypto companies that have tried to get public. And it was accounting rules. Listen, there's a process there. We have been diligent with the process. It feels like that the Gary Gensler SEC just didn't want to promote crypto. I mean, there was a thing called Operation Choke Point 2.0 where, banks wouldn't bank people with crypto. The overall government made it really, really difficult for this industry. Because of it, things like getting a normal audit. Our audit probably costs 2.5 times that it would if we were a normal company, not a crypto company. And that's just un-American, it's unfair, and it's non-innovation. I think all of that's about to change. And so...
I've harped on a Galaxy and you on the past for lagging a move in crypto. Over the last year, we can't say that. Galaxy has outperformed the move that we've seen in Bitcoin. And in the past, you chalked it up to just an investor base that wasn't there, that wasn't quite ready. And so now, in the context of the outperformance, over and above crypto and a potential maybe that you're going to be debuting to a whole new set of investors in the U.S., what is that base like, and how have the conversations evolved over the last year?
Listen, we've got a great set of investors, some big institutional investors and some Canadian retail investors. And so, we're thrilled that they're there. They've been supportive. I think that funnel is going to get a lot bigger, right? We don't have the hedge funds in the United States. We don't have, and a lot of that's just total volume that you trade every day, right? All these guys have limitations on how much volume a stock needs to trade before they can take big positions. And so it'll open up U.S. mutual funds, institutions, and U.S. hedge funds. And so I think the potential group of investors just is going to get a lot bigger.
Would you keep your
We also
Canadian
have a new
listing?
I'm sure you'll dual list, right?
All right, Mike, we got to leave it there, but thanks so much as always for your insights. I appreciate it. Before I let you go, I'm going to let you give me a price target. Where is Bitcoin going?
You know, I said this before. I said if Trump wins, I think by January we hit the 100K mark. And, you know, then you kind of reset the year. Listen, what will drive Bitcoin in the long run is both adoption and the macro framework. And if I didn't think either party in the United States is going to have the discipline to balance the budget, right, to get our deficit down. If they miraculously do, and it would be a miracle, then Bitcoin's rise will be slower. But if they do what I think they're going to do, which is what Trump has always done, which is, you know, cut taxes and spend a lot, I think you're going to see a really fertile environment for the next few years for Bitcoin and the rest of digital assets to appreciate.
Mike, thanks as always for joining me. That's Mike Novogratz joining us from Galaxy Digital. We're going to